For those out there that know me, know that I'm not a racist. It's not nice to say of yourself that you are or are not a racist. Personally, I would say this is something other people will have to mention and have to fill in. But I'm going to be bold and I'm just going to claim outright I do not consider myself a racist. Not because I think all blacks are bad, but I am right, therefore I'm not a racist. No, because I genuinely believe that race has nothing to do with a person. I mean, how society sees them may influence how they become as a person, but that's more development of the person than person in itself. So I do not believe that all something or other is bad or good. Having said this, this automatically means that it's silly to say that some people are proud to be a member of X race because, oh yeah, no, I'm proud to be African American. Why not? Let's name it. Or I'm proud to be a Mongol. Or I'm proud to be an African. Nothing wrong with that per se. I mean, if you want to be proud of your history, by all means, there's plenty to be proud of. But here's where we go wrong, because you're allowed to be proud of whatever you are as long as you're not white. And Francesca from MTV Decoded is here to explain to us why. So, yeah, this is gonna be good.
Scan the internet and you're bound to see racial pride hashtags and movements. But there's still one pride movement that's considered a serious faux pas. Can you guess which one?
Yeah, I know, kind of gave it away in my intro, but yes, of course, she's talking about the white pride. And I know white pride does sound weird, doesn't it? But let's continue to find out why, according to Francesca.
Hashtags like Reclaim the Bindi, Black Girl Magic, Asian Girls Unite, Native Awesome, and Latina Tuesdays are movements created for and by people of color to promote representation, self-love, and solidarity. But it seems that whenever marginalized people create spaces to celebrate themselves, majority groups get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know, kind of gave it away in my intro, but yes, of course, she's talking about the white pride. And I know white pride does sound weird, doesn't it? But let's continue to find out why, according to Francesca.
Ugh, but I can't have white pride. Isn't that just taking pride in my culture?
Well, yes, it is. But again, Francesca will explain to us why not.
Well, not exactly. Here's why white pride is very different from other kinds of pride. Number one, whiteness and white culture are already everywhere. Whether it's Congress, CEOs, beauty magazines, children's books, or the Oscars, whiteness is already everywhere. This is despite the fact that people of color, including Latinos, make up 38% of the US population.
And here she opens her book of double standards. To begin with, white people or white culture isn't everywhere. It might be prevalent in certain areas, but it's definitely not everywhere because, in all fairness, look in the Middle East, Asian countries, African countries, whites are definitely not the majority there. But even if you look at the things she mentions, how many black artists are there? How many black athletes does America have? How many black writers? Um, Black politicians, perhaps. I thought, but I could be wrong, that the last 8 years the president of the US was black, was he not? And there are Latino politicians and etc. 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 So white people are not to be proud of what they achieved because they are everywhere. But at the same sentence, you're telling us that 38% of the US isn't white. So if out of those 38% who are everywhere in the US as well, then they're everywhere as well, aren't they? So I don't get you. They're not allowed to be proud because they're white? Is that your main argument? Of course it is. But let's continue.
And European history is already a huge part of our educational system and culture. When people ask, why do we need a Black History Month, or Native Pride, or Puerto Rican Day Parade? It's because almost every aspect of our schooling and upbringing in America centers around whiteness.
No, it centers around achievements. And this also means that it will center around achievements by non-white people. And there are a few. If you can't remember them, you didn't pay attention in class.
People of color in history are regularly whitewashed or erased altogether, like Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra, or Ben Affleck playing Tony Mendez, a Latino man in Argo. Heck, almost any movie set in Egypt. And even when fictional characters are written as people of color, like Emma Stone playing a part Chinese woman, it's not uncommon for white actors to be cast to play those roles. From movies, TV shows, advertisements, and magazines, historically being white or looking white has been prioritized as the standard.
Yeah, because you work at a TV station and you do not know how movies get made or billboards get filled. They're not whitewashing history when they decide to have a white actor play something. But why am I trying to explain to you that there are important black people in European history as well? Because, in all fairness, some of these important characters you yourself denounce. I mean, after all, I'm Dutch, so I know who Zwarte Piet is. And I know that he was developed by an organization against slavery. Yet you denounced him because white people are racist and therefore he must be a slave. He was basically anti-slave, and you made him a slave again. You and your social justice warrior cult. Well done. But let's continue, because I'm sure it's going to get better than this.
Which leads me to my next point. Number 2. For communities of color, pride is about visibility. For a large part of American history, it was perfectly legal for people of color to be treated as second-class citizens. Remember, not too long ago, black people couldn't legally live in certain neighborhoods or go to certain schools. And as recently as the 1940s, it wasn't uncommon to see armed police officers dragging Native American children to European-style boarding schools.
Yeah, racism was and perhaps still is a thing. But Francesca, if your own argument is as recently as 1940, which is, let's say, 66 years ago, how many people of those days are still alive today? And how many white people today think that what they did then is a good thing? So again, you're totally ignoring one of the more important black people of the last century, Martin Luther King. You're totally ignoring him. You're totally washing him away. You're whitewashing Martin Luther King. Well done. Oh.
And while white pride has always been the standard, black pride, native pride, and other racial pride movements are an act of defiance in an oppressive culture that says being different, or not white, is wrong.
Okay, white pride hasn't always been good, so I don't know where you get that from, but fair enough. Continue in your own fairy tale. Being proud of who you are, so black pride or Latino pride, is not an act of defiance. Being proud of your achievements or achievements of people you hold dear is not an act of defiance. It's an act of pride. Hence the word white or black or Latino. Pride, not defiance. Silly woman. It's your own language, you know.
And let me be clear, proudly celebrating the achievements and lives of people of color is not saying that white people haven't achieved. It's a way to prevent marginalized people from being forgotten or misrepresented by a white system that has historically overlooked and oppressed them.
No one is saying you cannot be proud of the achievement of non-white people. I mean, there are plenty of achievements. I can bring up Martin Luther King again, of course, or I could say Nelson Mandela this time, or I could say Gandhi. I mean, neither of them are white, but they achieved quite the amazing, didn't they? Um, but the argument isn't that these people achieved something great. The argument is why white people cannot be proud of white people. You haven't given me an example yet. I mean, I am white. I'm proud of what white people achieved. Not everything, because we made some messes here and there too, as white people. Not me, but the race in itself. This is true for every race. But I can be proud of what white people did and still be proud of what, as I said, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, etc., etc. Why can I, but can't you? And why can't I be proud of what white people achieved?
Number 3, white pride has almost always been synonymous with white supremacy. Before you go too far down the road thinking white pride is just like any other racial pride, you might want to see who built that road and who likes to hang out there, because it's mostly white supremacists. Here are a few examples. In 2014 in Harrison, Arkansas, a billboard from White Pride Radio went up that said, "It's not racist to love your people," and that station's website redirected to kkkradio.com. You know, the KKK, the people who lynched, bombed, and terrorized black people in the name of white pride for over 150 years. Or there's the message board Stormfront, who use white pride in their logo. They have ties to neo-Nazis, were named the internet's first major hate site, and are actually run by former KKK leaders. And in the last year, several white pride Facebook groups have sprung up at American and international colleges. Some were done by trolls, and a handful actually wanted to talk about European ancestry. But others, like the Illini White Student Union, just wanted to confront Black Lives Matter protesters and even called on students to report suspicious black activity on campus.
No one is saying you cannot be proud of the achievement of non-white people. I mean, there are plenty of achievements. I can bring up Martin Luther King again, of course, or I could say Nelson Mandela this time, or I could say Gandhi. I mean, neither of them are white, but they achieved quite the amazing, didn't they? Um, but the argument isn't that these people achieved something great. The argument is why white people cannot be proud of white people. You haven't given me an example yet. I mean, I am white. I'm proud of what white people achieved. Not everything, because we made some messes here and there too, as white people. Not me, but the race in itself. This is true for every race. But I can be proud of what white people did and still be proud of what, as I said, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, etc., etc. Why can I, but can't you? And why can't I be proud of what white people achieved?
Ashe! 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 Ashe!
And having seen this, you recognize it's almost like this. White! White! Yeah, once the word white gets in there, oh, it's so bad. But when it's just I say or black, then not so much of a big deal, right? Double standard very much, Francesca? Well, not lately, surely.
Basically, white pride has a long history of violence and trying to silence people of color.
Yeah, that might have happened in the past. And to make it right, you're going to make sure it happens to white people now? Is that what we're going to have to take out of this?
But I'm not a white supremacist, I just want to celebrate my white heritage. Well, I hate to break it to you, but... Number 4, whiteness itself is a moving target that's main purpose has been to exclude. Look, it's wonderful to be proud of where you're from, and no one's saying there shouldn't be a St. Patrick's Day or a San Gennaro festival, but here's a fun fact about the history of whiteness in the US. At one time, being Finnish, Polish, Ukrainian, Russian, Italian, Spanish, Greek, German, and especially Irish or Jewish was seen as being lower than white people, and many of those groups weren't considered white at all. Back in the early 1900s, people from Finland, yes, Finland, were considered Asian. In fact, in the United States, the Irish were able to shed their minority status and become white largely by joining in the oppression of black people.
Considering that list, you do realize that there's hardly anyone left to consider white. I mean, most white people are, in their descendancy, Germanic. But German people weren't considered white people according to your list. So could it be that the people in power back in the days in the UK, or in America even, or in France, were using racism to segregate a people? I mean, this is what Sun Tzu said: divide and conquer. Could it be that it was this? And do you now also recognize that this is what you are doing? Because once again, you're trying to segregate people based on their race. No, no, you probably don't see this.
Look, everyone should be allowed to have pride in who they are, but it's important to understand that the term white pride comes with a lot of baggage. White pride specifically has resulted in the oppression and erasure of people of color. And when people experience oppression for who they are, loving yourself and taking pride in who you are is a revolutionary act.
Yeah, you know, the thing is, Francesca, I won't deny that in the past there have been groups, in this case, white groups, that have been supremacist and used white pride in a negative way. Just like it's now being used for black pride. You don't call it black pride, obviously, but yeah, you recognize what I'm going at, right? And you're right, segregation is bad. Now, again, is being proud of your heritage a form of defiance? No. If you feel you need to be defiant to have an identity, then I'm sorry, but you have a problem, and there is nothing in society that can change your personal problem. Have people in the past been mistreated? Yes. And mistreating others will make this right in some way? Two wrongs don't make a right, not as far as I was always been told. The thing is, you're segregating again. And there is a reason why a lot of social justice warriors, feminists, are being considered by society as negative because of the political correct culture and whatnot. Because white people are not allowed to do what colored people are doing. White people are not supposed to be racists, and I 100% agree with that. Then why can colored people be racist? Shouldn't racism in itself be the problem, no matter who does it? But people like you, Francesca, keep portraying the world as in the poor black person needs to stand up against white supremacy. But this is rubbish. How can you still talk about a white supremacy when your president was black? Yeah, just a simple question. Does that mean that there is no more racism in America because they had a black president? No, of course not. There's still stuff going wrong. But segregating society is not going to help. You want people to be able to work together. So if you're going to say, well, black people can be proud of their heritage, but white people cannot because their heritage has racism in it, I don't want to be rude, but black people have racism in their heritage too. Don't forget, it wasn't just the white slave traders that brought slaves to America, but those slaves were sold to the slave traders by other black people. Again, know your history. And if you yourself say that Germans were once not considered white, when nearly every group, society in Europe has Germanic tribes in their blood, how can any group of people in Europe call themselves white, but then say Germans are not white? Or Finnish people are not white? Okay, Suomi is linked to Asian languages, but how are the people not white? So basically what you're telling us is that there were people using segregatory forces to get their way, to split society. And the last 100 years or so, we've been trying to right that wrong. And there have been very great people walking the path to make us realize why we were being wrong. People like Martin Luther King, people like Mahatma Gandhi, people like Mandela. And these are not white people. There have been white people walking next to them, but I'll not mention them because I'll not try to take away their spotlight. But I don't have to try to take away their spotlight. You're doing it because you're destroying everything these people stood for. Well done, Francesca. In the name of social justice and in the name of black pride, you are trying to destroy white society. Oh, 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 I have to warn you though, because if you will actually start succeeding at this, more white supremacy groups will stand up and they will find more traction because that will be an act of defiance. White supremacists don't have a problem with black people calling themselves proud of their heritage. But they will have a huge problem, as will a lot of people, with the fact that you are allowed to be proud of your heritage, but they are not allowed to be proud of their heritage. You are allowed to ignore the faults in your heritage, but they are not allowed to ignore the faults in their heritage. I mean, double standard much? Anyway, for now, I think this is going to be my last movie for a while on Francesca because it's fun to do, but yeah, I doubt I'm going to reach her or any other social justice warrior idiots. I'm sorry, I was looking for a nice word, but I couldn't find one. Um, they're out to hurt society, and that's what they'll do. But don't worry, they'll do it in the name of free speech. That means you can say everything you want as long as they agree. So, who knows? Maybe their friends at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube will probably not like what I have to say. But then again, I only have a handful of people who actually watch my stuff, so I guess I'm not that popular, so I don't have to worry that much. But I do like to thank you for watching, and as always, comments are welcome, and I will try to answer. Have a good day.